Do you like me?
Just like me.
Like MeTV Fresno on Facebook. Get the latest news, interact with others, watch videos, become a fan of me.
Hi, I'm John Malos. Welcome to this special edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV. Today we're on tape, no phone calls. We're talking baseball. Some of the greatest baseball broadcasters of all time. It's on the air, off the presses. We're back with our special show in just a moment. This segment is on the air, off the presses. We will be talking about some of the greatest baseball announcers on radio or television of all time, the people that you have come to like and love and depend on to call that baseball game each and every day. And you know, spring training is in full session right now. They're playing spring training games, of course, in Arizona and Florida. Now remember, baseball is a part of the fabric of this country. It dates back to the 1850s when they first started back in New York. Now, in my possession today, I have here on the set my Little League baseball glove. That's right, and my Little League baseball bat that I used way back in the 1960s. Can you believe this? The bat and mitt are almost 50 years old. I actually used these when I was a little kid, and they mean so much to me. They've been in my possession. I never let them go, never let them out of my sight. I have moved so many times, crisscrossing the country, and they have come with me each and every time. You know, my son, who is almost 13 years old, I recently bought him a baseball bat to play baseball, 90 bucks out the window. What did he do a week later? He lost the bat. I've had these for almost 50 years and have never lost them. What is going on with our society today? It's just amazing. But I have so many great memories growing up, watching baseball. It's part of the fabric of this country. I listened to the Giants games as a kid on the radio. I listened to the A's games. I have fond memories of my father taking me and my brother to Candlestick Park and the Oakland Coliseum. And on those days, those summer days, I sat in the backyard and listened to Russ Hodges. He is the play-by-play announcer, or was, for the San Francisco Giants. If you've never heard of Russ Hodges, he made one of the greatest calls in broadcasting history, calling Bobby Thompson's home run in the one-game playoff against the Dodgers in 1951.
Number one, the shot heard round the world.
Last half of the night, the Giants' catches look slim, almost nil. Now it's a 4-2 ball game in favor of Brooklyn, but the Giants have the tying run at second base, and Thompson is the hit back. Bobby Thompson up there swinging. Blacker throws. There's a long shot. It's going to be at the lead. The Giants won the pennant. 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 Bobby Thompson hits into the line back of the left field stand. The Giants win the pennant, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy.
Live in our studio now is Dennis Hart to talk about some of the baseball announcers of all time, the greatest ones, including Russ Hodges and all the rest. We're going to go down the list, and, you know, unfortunately, we can't take phone calls today. It's a special program on tape, but I've got my mitt here. I've got my bat signed by Mickey Mantle, a Mickey Mantle bat, a Mickey Mantle glove. It's spring training. That's right. It's so exciting. This is the best time of year, no doubt about it, besides the baseball playoffs, which take place in October. We're back with Dennis Hart on the air, off the presses, in 1 moment.
All right, from the beginning. My name's Friday. I carry a badge.
Now on Xfinity 187.
Back here on the show, it's baseball season, spring training underway. Dennis Hart is here. How are you, my friend?
Thanks for letting me wear your Mickey Mantle mitt. I love Mickey Mantle, my favorite player. Man, I'm going to play a little baseball right now. Let's do it.
I remember when my dad bought me that glove in the 1960s. I wore it, have kept it near my side, as I said in the monologue all these years, and including my bat.
That's great.
Look at that.
50 years old, that 50-year-old bat. Oh, yeah. Brings back great memories, doesn't it, though?
And how can my son lose a baseball bat after a week?
I don't know.
$90 out the window, and I've had this for 50 years?
Yep. I've got old bats that I had that go back 40 years, 45 years when I was playing. Yeah, I still have them. You take them with you. Hey, baseball, as you point out, is the fabric of our life, and listening to baseball is really something we all grew up with the great announcers, tremendous announcers with those transistor radios. We'd go to bed at night with them. Did it a long time.
I know. My fond memories were out in the backyard with that transistor radio, listening to Hodges and Lon Simmons.
Yep, of course.
You know?
And of course, I listened to Vin Scully. We're going to talk about him a little bit from the Dodgers.
Right.
But there were great announcers back then.
I want to talk about one of the greatest of all time, Mel Allen.
Yes.
A lot of our viewing audience may remember Mel Allen. Maybe the younger viewers do not even know who he is. They've never heard of him. But talk about Mel Allen a little bit.
Mel Allen really became the voice of baseball in the early days of television. It was the great voice of the New York Yankees on radio for 25 years. He graduated from the University of Alabama, became a football announcer for the Crimson Tide. Nobody knows that. Went to CBS Radio as a staff announcer, and then got his big break in '39 when he became the voice of the New York Yankees and the voice of the New York Giants baseball team, because back then they only broadcast home games. Nobody broadcast away games, and so he broadcast both the Giants and the Yankees. Went into World War II, came out, became the voice of the New York Yankees because they split the broadcast. Russ Hodges became the voice of the New York Giants baseball team. Mel Allen did every World Series from 1949 to 1964 on NBC radio or television because the Yankees were generally always in the World Series. I grew up thinking Mel Allen was the only guy who could ever announce a World Series game on television or radio because he was always doing it. Legendary voice of the Yankees, great voice, had some distinctive calls. On a home run call, it was going, gone, 3-2, what'll he do? And he was a brilliant, magnificent announcer who really set the stage, the first voice of This Week in Baseball.
That's right, Mel Allen.
Mel Allen did that.
Of course.
He was the legendary voice for 25 years in the biggest market in the country. A generation of people, including me, grew up listening to Mel Allen and watching him on NBC television.
All right, we do have a clip of Mel Allen and that famous voice. I just love that voice.
Absolutely.
Perfect fit for baseball. Take a listen.
There it is. If it stays fair, there it is, number 60. How about that? There's standing ovation. A standing ovation for Roger Maris, who got number 60. And they're calling him out of the dugout. This is most unusual. They are asking him to come out of the dugout. Now this is something. They are standing and asking Roger to come out. Come out now. How about this? Come out of there. There he is.
And how fitting to call Roger Maris's 60th home run back in, what, 1961?
Yeah, Mel Allen stayed with the Yankees as the voice for 25 years. Then they let him go under rather unusual circumstances. Nobody ever quite knew why he left. And then he came back in the 1970s and remained a television voice for them until the 80s. He was legendary in New York City, legendary, one of the probably top 2 or 3 announcers in the history of Major League Baseball. It wasn't just baseball, though. He did Rose Bowls, he did Orange Bowls, he did a lot of football broadcasts. Mel Allen was one of a kind. He was a great announcer.
Is it my imagination, or why does it seem that we just don't have that, I don't know, that list of great radio baseball announcers? It's almost like listening to baseball on the radio is a thing of the past.
Yeah.
We just don't have those great announcers like we used to.
You know,
is it my imagination, Dennis?
Baseball is really more of a radio game than it is a television game to announce. Great baseball announcers, and we're talking about them today, have a way of painting a picture. Television announcers, you see the picture. All they are is the guide. The great baseball announcers, when radio was king, when baseball was really big on radio, had this distinctive way of keeping you interested, describing what was going on, painting the picture, so if you were at home or watching, listening on your transistor radio, you could see where every player was. You could see what was going on out there. Radio's become less important. Every game's on television now. And there are too many games on TV, too many announcers, very few great ones out there now. In fact, who's the voice of the Detroit Tigers now? Nobody knows.
I have no idea.
Who's the voice of the Chicago White Sox? Nobody knows that, exactly.
No.
Back then, we all knew it because those games were very special. Nothing was on television, or very few games were on TV.
Used to be Ernie Harwell.
Ernie Harwell's the great voice of the Detroit Tigers.
Detroit Tigers.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Ernie Harwell.
Yeah.
Who could
Harry
forget
Carey,
that?
of course, the great voice of the Chicago Cubs and the White Sox. All
Bill
those years in
King.
Chicago. Great voice, not only of the Oakland Raiders, probably the greatest football announcer ever, of the Oakland A's, the Golden State Warriors. He did a great job. Magnificent announcer.
What's the key to being a good radio announcer in baseball?
Oh, the key is, if you want to be one, you have to listen to Vin Scully. We're going to talk about him. The great voice of the Dodgers has this innate ability to tell stories, put you in the picture. It's as if you're at the ballpark, you can see what he's seeing. That's how good he is, and that's how good the great announcers are.
Painting a picture on radio is so important, but what about entertaining the listener as well?
You have to have the great knowledge. You have to be able, between pitches, to do more than say, he's picking up the rosin bag, he's stepping off the mound. You have to talk something about the players, about the team, about what's going on in the stadium. A lot of announcers never get that because they're so used to watching television. And remember, when you're watching a game on TV, the announcer doesn't have to say anything.
So is it telling a story about a player or maybe some kind of an incident that took place maybe on the plane on the way into New York?
Yes.
Hey, I was talking to so-and-so on the plane and he said, his knee is still hurting.
Not just what's going on right now. What went on 5 years ago? What went on 10 years ago? What's the history? What's this player done in this situation? What's the team done? How's the team done over the years in this stadium at night? The great announcers know all of this because they
hit the books and they study.
That's exactly right. It's not a matter of anybody can call a ball in a strike. Okay.
Yeah.
I used to be.
Almost anybody.
I used to be the play-by-play voice of Fresno State football, basketball, and baseball when I was at KFSR Radio. I could call balls and strikes.
Right.
I was an okay announcer, but never a great announcer. But I listened to Vin Scully because you always wanted to be the best, and he was the best.
Yeah, no doubt. By the way, many in our audience know what a transistor radio actually is. Many who are off to the side today do not know what a transistor radio is. Anyway, it goes back a long time. Anyhow, we're talking baseball with Dennis Hart. It's on the air off the press. It's talking about some of the greatest radio baseball announcers of all time. We're back with our show in a moment.
1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12.
This is Adam 12.
1 Adam 12, Roger.
Now on MeTV Fresno, Xfinity 187.
So excited because it's spring training. You know what my prediction is? The A's will have a better year than the Giants this year, Dennis.
Very possibly.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because the A's are not in quite as tough a division. They just have to beat the Texas Rangers, et cetera.
Yeah.
The Giants going to have to beat the Dodgers. The Arizona Diamondbacks are loaded. It's going to be very tough.
And think about this. Buster Posey, $167 million contract. The A's entire roster is only $60 or $70 million.
That's because they play Moneyball with Billy Beane, okay? And Billy Beane's a brilliant general manager. How do they do this? Year after year, they're in contention. They win their division with nobody who makes any more than you and I make right now, right? That's it.
By the way, with the exception of Ray Fosse, I can't remember the names of the announcers on the A's.
Yeah. Well,
Ray Fosse's been there for 25 years, probably.
Yeah, Glenn
maybe
Kuiper.
more.
Glenn
Kuiper.
Glenn Kuiper on television.
That's right.
Ken Korvach on radio, but nobody knows that. Nobody knows that.
No,
That's exactly right.
No, Ray Fosse, I know.
That's right.
He's been around a long time.
That's right.
Hey, I want to talk about a guy who, I watched him, and Dennis watched
Legendary.
him. Legendary voice on CBS, the Game of the Week. Each week, every Saturday, there was a Game of the Week with Dizzy Dean and Pee Wee Reese. I want to take you back to July 22nd, 1961. The Giants playing the Reds at Crosley Field. And who's up to the plate? You'll see.
So that puts Giants now on first and second. One out, and Willie Mays the batter. Pee Wee, how many times have you seen that in the 20 years that you played baseball?
Well, there's one of the few guys that I've ever seen do it was Mickey Mantle with the Yankees. And to tell you the truth, he got the perfect pitch for it. A curveball, let up curveball.
High.
Yes, sir. Then a fastball, he could have very easily bunted that ball foul.
Willie Mays up there, the center fielder. Swings on the first pitch and fouls it on the ground behind the plate. First strike one. This guy has 73 runs batted in. He has 20 home runs. 28 home runs. 28 home runs. Thank you, Mr. Kirby. 28 home runs, 73 runs driven in. Other scores, Chicago 1, Philadelphia 1, Milwaukee 5, Pittsburgh 2 after 3 innings of play. One strike to count on Willie Mays. Here's the pitch. Swung on. There's a line drive in center field. It's going to be in there for a base hit. Here comes the runner trying to score. The throw into the second baseman. And here comes Joe Montano across the plate with the first run of the ball game. And the Giants lead 1-0.
The great voice of Dizzy Dean. It's great to see Willie Mays at that young age, boy.
1961. Giants had been here 3 years, for heaven's sakes. What a great thing to see that kinescope, a black and white kinescope of the game of the week. Dizzy Dean, who was, I think, the biggest influence that I had in my early years of watching baseball. He was this great St. Louis Cardinals pitcher, the last pitcher to win 30 games in the National League in 1934, led the Cardinals to the World Series win over Detroit, then hurt his foot in the All-Star game, never was the same again, became a baseball announcer. And in 1955, CBS gets the Game of the Week sponsored by Falstaff Beer. And Dizzy Dean is hired to do it along with Buddy Blackner. He was his first co-host, then Pee Wee Reese came in 1960.
Wow.
Dizzy Dean and the English language had nothing in common. He always talked about how guys were slutting into third base. He'd mispronounce guys' names. English teachers hated Dizzy Dean, and the country loved him.
Yes.
The ratings that CBS had for the Game of the Week have never been seen in the history of television since. There were entire cities in the Midwest that would shut down when the Game of the Week was on Saturday, and later it was on Sunday as well. They got ratings in the 50s and the 60s in the Midwest and on the coast because everybody would tune in, as you and I did, to watch Dizzy Dean announce unforgettably a ball game.
Because they felt, the viewers felt, that he was one of them.
Exactly right. He was a Southern boy. He talked to them, with them, and not at us, etc.
Yeah.
He was always friendly. Remember, he would be singing the Wabash Cannonball during the game along with Pee Wee Reese. He'd be doing Falstaff beer commercials live, the premium quality of the brewer's art. Remember that?
I remember that as a kid.
The game, he would tell stories. He was the most interesting guy who ever did baseball on television because the game, he could announce the game, but that wasn't who he was.
See, he was a character.
He was a character.
Like Harry Carey was
exactly
a character.
Right.
That's why people loved them.
He would tell stories about the Gas House Gang. He'd be talking about the players he'd interviewed before the game. He'd be giving you down-home stories. We don't have that anymore, and it's to our loss. Everybody in the United States in those 10 years watched the CBS Game of the Week with Diz and Pee Wee.
All right, I want to take you to another time capsule. That's right. It's the time machine. We're going to go back to 1972 in the World Series at the Oakland Coliseum between the A's and the Cincinnati Reds. Who's doing the play-by-play for NBC? Curt Gowdy, another great baseball announcer.
Hi, everybody. Curt Gowdy of NBC Sports. Monty Moore, the voice of the Oakland A's. When are the hitters going to start hitting? Everybody's asking about this 1972 World Series. Each team has a team batting average of 178. There have been only 9 runs scored in the first 3 games. Cincinnati got on the board last night with its 1-0 victory. And I'll tell you, the way the pitchers are pitching, I don't believe we'll see too much scoring in this series. The A's, the last month of the season, didn't score many runs. They were winning 2-1, 3-2. Receiving pitching just like there's a long drive. Goodbye. And the A's are in the lead. Gene Tennis has hit another one. Saturday, another one today. Charlie Finley with 2 banners.
My
Boy,
goodness.
good to hear and see Kurt Gowdy again. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Gowdy became the voice of NBC Sports in 1965 after being the great voice of the Boston Red Sox for 15 years. He replaced, when NBC got the rights, they took him from CBS, and so Diz was no longer on, and Kurt Gowdy became the voice, not just of baseball, as you know.
Oh, he was
of everything.
Yeah, he was NBC.
For 10 years, they burned him out. He did every game of the week in every World Series. He did NFL football. He did NCAA basketball. He did college football. He did everything that the Olympics. He was a legendary, great announcer.
He did college basketball.
He did all of it. He did all of it.
I know. And you saw Monty Moore in the picture with him, the voice of the Oakland A's. Talk about Monty Moore.
Monty Moore had come out when Kansas City came out to Oakland to be the Oakland Athletics. He had been the voice in Kansas City, and he came out with Al Helfer to become the voice of the Oakland A's. Monty Moore stayed with the A's for years. He was a guy who was this, not a homer so much. Helfer was a little bit of a homer, but he became, you knew who he was rooting for. You knew who Monty was rooting for. But he, in those 3 years, in 72, 3, and 4, he was on the World Series on NBC radio and television because NBC would put the local announcers on both their radio and television networks. So Monty became a national name in those 3 years.
And as I recall, he was neutral on NBC.
You had to be. You had to be. Yes, indeed
neutral.
so.
Yeah.
But here, I mean, Kurt Gowdy did everything all those years. It was impossible to tune into NBC on a sports event in those years and not hear and see Kurt Gowdy.
We got more to come with Dennis Hart talking about the great baseball announcers, television and radio. We're back with our show in a moment.
Frigidaire. We introduced the first home freezer, the first pulsator agitator washer, and now we introduce the Frigidaire Orbit Clean dishwasher, designed with a unique wash arm that gives you 4 times more water coverage for a consistently better clean. Frigidaire, over 90 years of legendary innovation.
See the full line of Frigidaire appliances at Ventura TV Electronics and Appliances.
Many consider him the greatest baseball player, or not baseball player, baseball announcer of all time, and that is Vin Scully, the voice of the Dodgers. He's been the voice of the Los Angeles Dodgers for, 65 years.
The longest tenured voice of any professional sports team in history. Think about that. He's been on the Dodgers broadcast since 1950. Red Barber brought him over to do the Dodgers games. In 1953, Vin became the youngest man ever to broadcast a World Series game on television, and still is. He was 25 years old. He came west with the Dodgers when they moved to Los Angeles in 1958. Los Angeles fell in love with him so much, to this moment, he is considered the first or second most important Los Angeles Dodger in the team's history, only right up there with Sandy Koufax. He has become the legendary voice of baseball, probably without a doubt the best announcer ever to do baseball.
That's right. I mean, he bleeds Dodger blue more than Tommy Lasorda did.
But you never know it when you're listening to him because he's not a homer. You never can tell who's winning the game when you tune into Vin. He plays it right down the middle. He's the master storyteller. He is absolutely brilliant as a baseball announcer.
What makes him so good and far above some of the others?
First of all, his voice is always calm. He has a wonderful voice. He's a storyteller. He tells you things you never knew about the Dodgers, about the opponents. He's a student of the game, has been for 65 years as the voice. He paints a picture out there that is unparalleled. We talk about picture painters.
Yeah.
He's the most brilliant.
All right, Vin Scully, if you don't know who he is, here's a look and a listen.
We've decided that we will come back with the Dodgers for next year.
It's time for Dodger baseball.
2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Strikes, Aaron waiting, the outfield deep and straight away. Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone. 2-2 to Harvey Keene. 1 strike away. Sandy into his windup. Here's the pitch. Swung on and missed. A perfect game.
Vin's call in what some consider perhaps the greatest game ever pitched, Sandy Koufax's perfect game against the Cubs, September 9th, 1965. 14 strikeouts are the most ever in a perfecto. It was Sandy's 4th no-hitter. And now, number 1.
High fly ball into right field.
Unbelievable. I mean, when I get goosebumps listening and watching that video of Kirk Gibson's home run over my team, the A's.
And what made that call so brilliant, the one we just saw, Gibson's home run, is that right after that, Vin said, in a season that's been so improbable, the impossible has just happened. Nobody can think of that stuff.
Not at that moment.
He thought he had so many great moments in his career and still has some to come, and he always had the perfect thought. What he was most brilliant at, besides his calls, as you'll remember, on dramatic events during games, he would let the crowd noise carry the broadcast. He would just be quiet because he knew nothing he could say would be better than what the crowd was doing that you could see and hear after an event. His call of Sandy Koufax's perfect game in 1965 is in broadcast textbooks as the example. It literally is. I've read it as the perfect example of how to call a game. No one has ever done a game better than he did in that game with Sandy Koufax.
A perfect game by Sandy Koufax, a perfect called game by Vin Scully back then in the 1960s, no doubt about it. Next guy on the list, one of my all-time favorites. I love this guy even today, and many don't even know he was a baseball announcer. Al Michaels. Take you back to the World Series, the Earthquake Series between the Giants and the A's in 1989.
And home for the Giants, one of the most spectacular vistas on this continent, any continent. Downtown San Francisco in the background, and we zoom into Candlestick Park in the southeastern corner of this city. For the first time in 27 years, a World Series game will be played in Candlestick Park. The Battle of the Bay continues. Game 3 of the 1989 World Series, the Oakland Athletics against the San Francisco Giants. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to Game 3. It's been dominant Oakland pitching, of course, in the first two games, so Roger Craig has made some changes in the Giants lineup. Ken Oberkfell, the great pinch hitter, will start at third base. Matt Williams moves from third base to shortstop. Jose Uribe is on the bench. Pat Sheridan takes over for Candy Maldonado in right field. Now, the Giants, of course, are faced with a formidable task, having to win 4 or 5 in essence to win the world title. It has become less uncommon, though, in recent years for teams to overcome a 2-love deficit. Most recently, it was done by the New York Mets in 1986 against the Boston Red Sox, and it was done the year before as well in 1985 by Kansas City against St. Louis. So the Giants tonight will be sending Don Robinson to the mound, and for Oakland, it will be Bob Welch, and there's no designated hitter in effect in the National League Park.
And, of course, Dennis, a few minutes after that intro, of course, the earthquake hit San Francisco. It was the Bay Area series, the Bay Bridge series.
How well I
Giants
remember that.
A's.
I was in the KPIX television newsroom watching his open to the World Series, as a matter of fact, when that quake hit. Yeah, exactly. Al Michaels, great voice of the Cincinnati Reds in the early 1970s, came out to the Giants to be their voice for a couple of years, then hired by ABC to do baseball. And, of course, that's all been obliterated in people's memories because he's been the great voice of football. First Monday Night Football on ABC and now Sunday Night Football on NBC. He was a great baseball announcer.
But don't forget, Dennis, the Olympic hockey game in 1980.
Do you believe in miracles?
Yes.
A classic call, one of the greatest calls of all time.
Yeah, that's what made him famous.
Yes.
That game right there. But in terms of, I've heard Al Michaels do so many baseball games, not only as the Giants announcer when he was the play-by-play man for the Giants on radio for, 2 years?
2
I
years.
believe.
2 years.
2 years.
Yes.
And then on ABC, I thought he was fantastic. He was maybe second behind Vin Scully.
Had he not gone into football and become the Monday night announcer, probably he would be considered the second greatest baseball announcer ever after Scully at this point.
Yeah.
But he was so good in so many other things, and ABC wisely saw that Monday Night Football was going to change their primetime lineup for the better forever. They brought him on, and the rest, as we say, is history. Great football
Can you
announcer.
rate them? Mel Allen, Dizzy Dean, Kurt Gowdy, Vin Scully, Al Michaels. How would you rate these guys?
Well, first of all, Scully's the best baseball announcer ever, bar none. And after that, it's very, very tough. If I had to rate them, if you're twisting my arm, if you're taking this off my hand, okay, I'd put Kurt Gowdy second, I'd put Mel Allen third, I'd put Diz fourth, and I'd put Michaels fifth. But you know what? They're all up there. They're all number twos to me, behind Scully. All of them.
All tied for second behind Scully.
They are great announcers. This has been fun. Shall we do this again sometime?
I think we should. I got goosebumps just watching all that video, didn't you?
Haven't even talked about Harry Carey.
Harry Carey, one of the all-time greats.
Absolutely.
We got like 10 seconds left. He was the Chicago Cubs' great announcer.
Holy Holy cow was his great call. It could be a home run. Good to be here.
All right. Dennis Hart, always good to see you. Thank you much. Hey, enjoy the baseball season. It's spring training. We've already sprung forward with the time. So enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the baseball season. See you back for another edition of Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno tomorrow.